for coming to join us. We are going to be talking about esports. Esports has obviously been a very exciting thing, probably a very hot topic in mainstream culture in 2018. And what we have is a panel of my fellow colleagues and what I believe is some of the industry's finest. I'll pass it over to Lester and introduce yourselves.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Lester Chen. I lead up all gaming content partnerships at YouTube. And my main region is the Americas, but I handle a lot of esports, publisher relationships, mobile gaming, and a lot of things in the space.
I'm Kristen Connolly. I'm the Director of Marketing for the Overwatch League. So those of you familiar with that, that's part of Activision Blizzard esports leagues. We launched our first season last year, are headed into our second season, and I oversee our marketing and social media globally.
Hi, my name is Daniel Kelly. I head up the corporate marketing for HyperX. HyperX is a division of Kingston Technology. We are the gaming division. So we make accessories, so gaming headsets, keyboards, mice, and so on. And we handle all the marketing fairly in-house out of Orange County.
I'm Kristen Salvatore. I look after Twitch's global sponsorships team. Twitch is a live interactive streaming platform.
And my name is Damon. I'm head of esports at United Talent Agency, where we represent a lot of leading pro players, streamers, and live content creators within the space. So maybe to kick things off for the audience here, let's get into a conversation about just a little background in esports. What is it and where did it come from? Lester, you want to kind of start things off?
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. Going back, I guess, like 15 so years, it started as players playing against each other and at an expert level. And I think I come from the pedigree of Halo days and the advent of like Call of Duty. So I think back then it was just competitive gaming, but it was broadcast on like MLG TV and it was held in ballrooms just like this. I think in the more recent years it's obviously evolved quite tremendously from the amount of venture capital being injected, the amount of media companies looking at content in different ways and supporting esports from a broadcast perspective, both like VOD and live. I think it's a place now where there's franchises being sold and bought, and I think there's amazing support from game companies now. They're getting involved in creating the structure and the frameworks for players and teams and organizations to thrive. I think it's come a long way in the past 10 years where we're kind of in the renaissance of gaming and everyone's trying to figure out how to serve like the upper echelon, like the 1% of players who appeal to a vast majority of fans who just want to play games and watch people who are kind of like the top tier level of said games.
Awesome.
Blizzard really has been at the forefront of esports from the get-go with StarCraft in Korea, so I'm really proud of where we've taken the entire industry as key leaders in esports. And as I mentioned, the Overwatch League launched last year. We play right now seasonally at the Blizzard Arena in Los Angeles. We hosted our first ever grand finals at Barclays Center in Brooklyn. So where I think about what esports has been and where we are now, just imagine 11,000 fans coming into the Barclays Center at a sold-out event in New York City, repping their favorite jersey. And that's really kind of the first, to witness that, to see a little kid wear a pro player's jersey just as they would an NBA player, NFL player, but this is a competitive video game player, to kind of see that morph into that type of fandom and passion just kind of echoes where the industry has come in the last decade.
And Daniel, obviously you at HyperX have been supporting esports for quite a long time. We'd love to hear your insight.
Yeah, so like I said, HyperX is a division of Kingston. Kingston saw about 15 years ago as they had a brand called HyperX. It was just the top-end brand, right? If you have a line of anything, you just name something the top end, and that was what HyperX was. But what we saw is that there was a trend on who was buying all of that really high-end equipment, and it was gamers. And they were buying it to either participate or just to play on LANs and so on. So HyperX quickly jumped into that. So we've been sponsoring some of the top teams like Cloud9 and TSM for more than 10 years now. So we've actually been in esports, sponsoring teams and leagues and so on for 10 plus years. Some may not have heard about it within the last few years, but it's been around. It's just now that it's finally gaining that global spotlight that I think it's deserving of. But it's certainly a exciting time for it.
Awesome.
We owe a big debt of gratitude actually to the fine people at Blizzard because StarCraft 2 actually plays a really key role in the development of Twitch becoming Twitch. Before Twitch was Twitch, we were Justin TV. I don't know who here has ever heard of Justin TV, but it was, oh good. This is going to sound like a Saturday Night Live sketch that I'm about to describe to you, but it was a real thing. Justin TV was our founder, Justin Kahn, live streaming his life 24/7. And people were really into it, but when StarCraft 2 came out, Justin and everybody in the then Justin TV offices basically stopped everything that they were doing and just started playing StarCraft 2 all the time. And that's when they realized that, oh, actually, people really want to be watching people play games, in particular competitive games on this platform. And that's actually how Twitch became Twitch TV, spun off from Justin. So thank you.
Of course.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, before we move on to the next topic, what I sort of want to do is ask the audience here, how many of you have actually watched an esports event, whether in person or online? Great, that's good to hear. For me, I think that one of the most interesting things is really how esports has been embraced by mainstream culture. The question I have for the panelists is, what's really evolved in the past few years, and what's really brought it to the forefront?
Ninja, Fortnite.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, just to start from the Overwatch League perspective, we are a relatively nascent league if you look at the history of professional leagues globally. So just really the past couple of years, the new generation, if you will, kind of evolving into the digital and social realm, the accessibility, thank you to Twitch to be able to watch competitive gaming anytime, anywhere, has really propelled just fans all over the world being able to take part of this phenomenon. And then of course the foray into mainstream and popular culture. It's pretty incredible, even particularly this year, to be able to tune in from anything of the Today Show to a Forbes article to late night television, and just see the popularity of esports and gaming just kind of becoming a lot more acceptable, and kind of moving anything from that wasn't as much talked about or kind of felt like a different kind of subset of culture, moving into just what we know as broader entertainment.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of great people at both like the platform companies and the game developers who've been risk takers and have tried pushing events to be at a Barclays Center or at a Staples Center. I think over the past 5 years there's been an addressable audience where I think a lot of investors for the NBA are like, they're starting to look from other traditional sports organizations are starting to look at it and be like, okay, this is a huge audience. This is an audience where some marketers can monetize. This is an audience where tons of people are tuning in on the daily basis and spending an average viewing time of 20 plus minutes sitting in front and watching their favorite game or stream or upload content. I think some of these outside influences has helped guide some of these headlines, and I think again, like some of the game publishers going a franchise model or starting to think in a more structured way to make it easier for a consumer to kind of dig in and not have to do as much navigating into like, okay, we've heard about this esports thing, but like what exactly is it and what is official versus someone putting up $5,000 in a city they've never heard of. So I think a big kudos to some of the people who've gotten on the ground and created systems that can help the mainstream audience kind of dig their teeth into.
And I think it's the acceptability of it, right? Because those that have been in esports have been around for quite a long time, and it's been dynamic and fun, and it's been growing each year. But it always had a bit of a stigma as related to traditional sports and entertainment. And our first brand ambassador that was not one of those core esport teams or personalities was Gordon Hayward, who came up through the Final Four, almost hit the game-winning shot with Butler, but he was actually talking to his coach at Butler about having to take some time off and go play in this Halo tournament on the weekend. The coach is like, what's going on here? But now he's playing for the Boston Celtics. He's an all-star, right? So that level of, I guess, just again, acceptability by the personalities that know the passion, know how much fun it is to compete and to watch people compete, that it's getting that acceptance. And I think that has helped catapult it in the last few years, that you do have individuals that will go toe-to-toe with somebody who says that, oh, that's just gaming, it's in the basement, it's that type of thing. No, it's actually a real thing, and you should be paying attention to it. And I think that just opened up the floodgates, right? You're seeing, like you said, DC, you're seeing all these other personalities and broadcast networks. Everybody's flooding into the scene because it's worthy of it, and that's why it's such a special time right now.
I think from the consumer perspective, part of the reason that esports is so appealing is, as you said, Lester, most people are watching esports, consuming it on a streaming platform, where at least on Twitch, there are 1 million people on Twitch at any given moment watching something. A lot of that is gaming. Certainly a big portion of that is esports related, but they're also interacting, right? They're not just watching, it's not a lean back experience, they're participating in the chat, they're interacting with one another, in some cases they're interacting with a broadcaster, so there's a real feeling of being able to be a part of the thing that they are watching. You don't necessarily you don't often get at all, like actually with traditional sports. So I think there's this it's easy to create fandom when you feel, a part of something that way, a part of something bigger.
And speaking about fandom, that's definitely something that's, in my opinion, has really defined this genre. I would love to hear your opinion, Kristen, from Twitch, to see explain the fandom from your perspective. Obviously, you guys represent such a large portion of the market. Tell us about all the driving forces behind it.
I mean, I sort of just gave away my answer. Right? It's the secret sauce of Twitch is, we say we're a platform, we're really a service, right? Like, we are a place where multiplayer entertainment happens. We are a place where people come together to have this shared interactive experience about whatever it is that they're watching. And so I think, as I was just saying, like when you're, when you can have that level of investment in the thing that you're watching, it creates a completely different attachment. Knowing that you're not only knowing that you're part of a community that loves this thing, but actually interacting as part of that community, there's nothing really like that.
Yeah, what's incredible about just fandom is it doesn't matter what you're a fan of, the shared passion, those traditions, the values, the rituals, those transcend any type of game or sport. This might be a little too one-on-one for the crew, but esports, as we look at it, a lot of questions that get asked at conferences is just the different sports in them and how we kind of navigate the entire industry. And it's very similar, just if you're passionate about basketball or ice hockey or golf or Overwatch the game or League of Legends or Fortnite or whatever it may be, to know that you have people all around you that share those same values, it's really powerful. And what's so cool about esports is that it's truly global. So we have 40 million plus players around the world playing Overwatch, and it doesn't matter what language they speak or what their cultural background is, they have the shared value and sense and just love for the same game. And that's what the Overwatch League was built upon, is that the community and really embracing what they love and providing them experiences, whether it be live in arena with 11,000 fans around you, or digitally where you're in a chat room on Twitch and you can talk to people with that same level of passion and kind of fan identity. And as Daniel mentioned, now it's a lot more kind of celebrated and accepted, and so it's just really awesome to have that ability to share that type of passion for something that may not have looked the same as your parents' generation of the kind of game that they were rooting for, or the fandom that they had, but the basics and foundation of it is pretty much the same.
From my perspective too, I think it's incredibly accessible. Like, esports is so accessible when you're watching streams for free or watching YouTube videos for free or on Twitter or Instagram or any of the platforms. You're kind of hit over the head multiple times in a given day if you're a fan of, let's just say, Cloud9 or another team or Overwatch League. You can go from watching a stream to going and watching a highlight video to watching a documentary about a player's come-up story to then seeing a clip, like an awesome, Farrah clip or something like that. And you're kind of inundated with all this kind of free media and entertainment. And let's just say, for the team example, you can have a specific team go across multiple esports titles. So as like a Cloud9 fan, you can be rooting for not just one isolated game. You can root for their, League of Legends team, or you can root for any of the organizations that they're in. So there's all these micro communities that are accessible when you're consuming media, and they have a lot of entrepreneurial kind of staff to think about a really guerrilla style of marketing tactics, from merchandising to their media teams, and they make it really easy as an esports consumer to always kind of keep up to date with what's going on in the space, where I think traditional media does obviously have a lot of these things, right? If you watch an NBA game, but I think esports has a very direct tie where you can actually interact with some of these players or some of these organizations, whether that's like changing your gamer tag to a team's name or having your tag, like wrapping like a team or your favorite player in your actual username, like you can kind of rep your fandom that way, and I think it's kind of amazing that games are so accessible that you can show that to, tens of millions of players who also play that game.
I think we're starting to see that crossover actually into traditional sports, right? Where more and more traditional sports athletes are spending their time streaming or, playing games and, either playing VODs or, so, yeah, I would say that they're probably taking lessons from this space on how to, increase accessibility and deepen fandom with their fans.
And I think at HyperX, I would love to hear your perspective, being a core sort of marketer within the space, talking about that type of consumer and marketing towards them.
Yeah, so, we talked a lot about fandom. If you're a fan of a team, you're a fan of a game, you're a fan, right? And you want more. And I think what we took is, we create a lot of content, and a lot of that content is not the polished, 60-minute style interviews. It's making them play silly games like, break the ice and things of that nature. And I think that the players appreciate that too. And I think we went into this whole thing kind of organically, right? Because we started as gamers and we were, marketing to gamers. So we naturally gravitated towards those things that we would want to watch. And I think the consumption of that content, I think, was really appreciated. And so we've done that. We've done gaming house tours. Because there's, I think to that point, there's a lot of, I think, traditional sports is learning from the esports and vice versa. And I think that's why it's such a great time right now. Is because, there's all these playbooks that have been, around for years. And, okay, now how do I apply that to my sport or to my world? So for us, it's all about getting the fans, which in our case, because we sell products, are the customers, closer to that team, that player, that game that they love. And a lot of that just comes through content. And to the example, it's so accessible, right? So if I'm a Lakers fan, right? I happen to live in LA area, so I get to see it. But if I was, East Coast, I'd have to pay for a package and do a lot of that stuff. Whereas esports out of the gate, it was always very accessible, whether VOD or on stream and so on. So for us, it's all about feeding that passion. We're just trying to live in that space where fans are trying to get closer to a team or to an org. And as the different worlds collide, traditional sports and music and media and esports, just living in that world is where we really wanted to stay. And again, the content strategy was really very organic, and it's worked. Again, these players that play, say, Overwatch even for 8 hours a day, they want to get out and kind of shake up their world and do something completely different. So if you can facilitate that, you can come through very authentic because it is what you want to see, is naturally what others are going to want to see.
I think you can also be a little bit more risk-take. Like, you can not be risk-averse. Like, you can take chances with content because you can. Like, you can take many different creative directions, whether that's ask someone 20 questions or go do a house tour, and if that's not working, you would probably know immediately if the comments or the dislikes or the audience response on
Twitch, they
Twitter.
would tell you right away.
So, yeah, so as a brand, you would pretty much immediately know if that was a hit or not, and you can immediately start tracking the data and analytics behind, okay, that concept worked, people tuned in for a minute of that video, maybe like putting a 20-minute video out wasn't the smartest thing, or hey, we tried doing a stream, or we tried marketing our message. Like, you would know right away as a marketer that if something is really resonating. I always advise that the voice, though, has to be genuine, and gamers are the quickest to jump on a Reddit or a Twitter or go on a stream or a comment section and be vocal about their trust or distrust of you as a company. So I think for any marketers out there, understanding the voice of the community that you're touching is the most precious kind of commodity you can have, right? Whether it's Rocket League or Overwatch or League of Legends or Dota, like they all have a general kind of meme-based internet culture, zeitgeist kind of thing that's going on, but you kind of have to understand the vernacular and the lingo and the way that they really appreciate that game.
Yeah, and I think you're right there, and that we live in a digital age, so it's very, very easy to measure marketing, effects and all of that. But I guess the caution there would be, if you find something that works, don't just get too comfortable in that lane, right? Continually try to turn the page, see what else is new. Always keep those creative juices flowing because you never know what that next great piece of content or something that the fans will really, really appreciate. And to that other point, all of these different games, they have different communities, and you really have to find the right, authentic voice because you could hit and miss a lot. But to the bigger point there, yes, in today's age, you can measure almost anything, kind of see what's working, what's not, and the community will tell you really quickly if it's not working, and then you have to quickly take a left or a right turn.
Yeah, Lester, I love your point on kind of testing and learning and optimizing. That's something that we've done with the Overwatch League of, look, we're only in season 2. We're not pretending that we know all the answers or how to do everything, but we've been able to listen to the community and attack things. I mean, we've changed the schedule, we've changed some of the formatting, and particularly the content. That's just, I think of when we talk a lot about what's to come in esports, the content marketing and how we all interact with streamers and influencers and just the community at large, and develop content that is tailored and segmented to the very different audiences. Obviously, how we speak to our core audience is quite different than how we speak to the more mainstream audience that's really engaged at this point. So being able to do that, especially if you're a brand out there thinking how you partner, I think everyone's hit on figuring out the authenticity, understanding your core values. I know we'll get into this in a few minutes, but that's just so important, and being able to tailor that. I think you're going to see a lot more of that to come in the content creation and the different tonality of how the different fan bases are being engaged with.
Awesome. I think when you think about esports and technology, there's an obvious and very close relationship between the two, but I'd love to ask the panelists, how do you guys feel that technology has added to the development of the genre, whether it be through streaming, integration, data, from any perspective? Would love to hear.
So with our core audience, whatever property you're looking on, but I'll obviously be a little biased to the Overwatch League, in the 20s, they're fans and an audience that are digital native, social first, everything they're consuming is online. So of course, we're very tech focused, whether we're streaming something on Twitch at the same time as Twitter, Facebook, or even our linear partnerships with ESPN, Disney XD, ABC. We want to be accessible and we want to be where the fans are. So of course that technology is a huge part of that. We talked a lot already about the accessibility, so that's been a game changer. Whenever you look at other traditional sports or even kind of anything competitive previously, the athletes were a little untouchable. You definitely couldn't relate to them because unless you were 6'7", you wouldn't be a professional basketball player. They were out, you couldn't communicate with them directly, so introduce technology and social, and all of a sudden not only can you be playing next to, playing in a game as your favorite star athlete or pro player, you can also be talking with them, so that's huge. For the Overwatch League, the other big part of tech that is going to be a lot of our focus for 2020, 2021, 2022, as we get years down the road, is how we deliver that broadcast kind of experience and how we truly bring the Overwatch League all around the world so that you're experiencing that on whatever platform that you prefer at all times of the hours globally for all fans to consume.
I just think the general advent that you can have a streaming setup in your home with good enough internet in this day and age is incredible. You can stream 1080, 60 FPS. That you can, if you're a publisher, that you guys are pushing so many feeds in so many different languages in huge stadiums. I always go back to League of Legends having the CGI dragon, the AR dragon flying through their stadium, and that in itself is why I always go back to esports. I look at traditional sports broadcasts, an NFL game, and I see Troy Aikman or Joe Buck sitting in the commentary booth, and I look at esports setups, and sometimes esports setups don't look that far off from traditional sports setups. I think the broadcast capabilities are incredible. I think transcoding and the advent of interactive, platforms really tying audience back into the digital experience is really awesome. I think traditional sports with BAMTech and just watching baseball scores and highlights. We are so far ahead of that. I think the ability to have the game companies providing data, also in feeds, we have high level statistics, so that can fuel other products. Whether I've been working on some Google search things where you can just type in team names and you can get box scores and things will show up right into your search feeds. I think there's so much data out there that it's we're living in a true kind of bleeding edge with esports, both from the product and broadcast technology standpoint as well as the data standpoint.
There are layers and layers and layers of democratization of content happening, right? Where, to your point, anybody with the right resources can set up create their own streaming setup, basically set up their own interactive television channel in their kitchen, and then Twitch has a co-streaming, for example, our co-streaming feature, which allows you to pull another stream in, and then you can broadcast over top of that stream, so sort of Mr. Science Theater 3000 style for those who are big nerds, I guess. And but like the idea of that, right? That I can, create my own content over someone else's content, host someone else's content. Like each and every person who has access to that can, is a media source now, is a content source, which can be a little overwhelming. But I think also like the opportunities that come with that, it's incredible.
I mean, it's almost like beating out traditional companies as well, right? Like sometimes the news is breaking faster on an individual stream, and by the time like a media company tries going and reporting on something, streamers or Reddit or another platform has already kind of democratized that information through like
And talk about how to hate it, if it's Reddit.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's completely crazy that there's so many different voices just in the space at this time.
For esports, there's so many entryways as a marketer to enter into the space. You have obviously digital media, you have experiential marketing. Krista, I'd love to hear your opinion. I know that Twitch provides such a wide product offering. What are some recommendations or some opinions that you might have in the space and how marketers should enter?
Yeah, I mean, I am lucky in so much as I look after Twitch's sponsorships business, but we also have this very robust media business. We have all these really cool native ad opportunities. And so what we have been working, and my team's relatively new still at Twitch, so I would not say that we've like cracked the code on this yet, but the code that we are trying to crack is how do you help a brand do a genuinely integrated, like everyone talks about like an integrated marketing campaign, but how do you do a genuinely integrated marketing campaign where you're pulling all of the right levers together, considering a consumer journey that actually looks at someone who's, when someone interacts with your digital and then interacts with something experiential and then like packaging that all together in a really thoughtful way. I think that's been hard to do for a whole host of reasons, not the least of which is, we are, I think, something of an anomaly in that you can come to Twitch and get all of those things in one place. It's a little bit unusual, so I would say that's the holy grail. For us, for our viewers, and for brands.
Yeah, as a marketer, it's just fun because there's always something new. I just love marketing, but with all of the new tools, even those new features you were explaining, the marketing wheel should be turning of, okay, how do I apply my brand, my product, my service into those types of tools, because the accessibility is there. And I think that this generation of, I guess, esports and athletes, they grow up digital, maybe as compared to traditional sports, if you will. So everything is instant, it's online, everybody's very social savvy. So as a marketer, I think there's two sides of the coin. There's one, what's your voice? You don't want to come in and start missing, and then you're going to have a lot of blowback because the fans and the community, they will sniff you out if you're not in there for the right reason. I mean, we're all in here to do business, but with all of these tools, that's the other side of the coin is, how do you? There's all kinds of ways. There's overlay ads, there's underlay ads, there's scripts, there's bots, there's so many tools and devices that it can actually be overwhelming as a marketer too. So my advice is always kind of simplify your strategy down to, okay, pick a spot, pick a lane, pick a game, pick a community, work with a partner, see what those tools are. And to the point Lester earlier, it's, there's so many metrics that you can get in a very, real-time way that you can quickly realize what's working, what's not. And then that can grow into a much more, robust strategy. But yeah, the capabilities now are just off the charts, compared to the marketing just 10 years ago. And so again, every year, every month, there's always a new tool. As marketers, you just have to figure out what is the best way to apply my brand, my message, my voice into that. And then there's always good partners like Twitch and YouTube and others to help guide you through that journey.
I think the good news, though, is this is an audience who are okay being marketed to. They don't like when you try to tell them that you're not marketing to them and you're marketing to them. That doesn't go over well. They're completely cool. Like, this is a sophisticated audience who understands the value of advertising. If it brings something to them that they were not otherwise getting, whether that's content or support for their favorite team or their favorite game or league, like, they're completely fine with that. They understand how advertising works. They understand that money is supporting the thing that they love. So I think that's relatively new from, 30, 40 years